In 1941, Chevrolet built a truck so ugly it looked like a brick with headlights. 60 years later, a horror movie director bolted a cowcatcher to the front of one, painted a license plate that read BEATNGU, and created the most terrifying vehicle in horror film history. The truck was already unsettling before anyone touched it. The movie behind it? That's where it gets darker. The 1941 Chevrolet COE was never meant to scare anyone. COE stands for cab over engine, which is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of the engine sitting in front of the driver like a normal truck, they stuck the driver on top of the engine. The cab rose straight up, almost vertical, giving the thing a profile that looked less like a truck and more like a refrigerator on wheels. Chevrolet offered these in 3 different wheelbases. The shortest one sat on just 109 inches. That is absurdly compact for how tall this thing stood. You could park it in a shopping mall lot, but standing next to it, you would be looking up, way up. The whole point was practical. By stacking the driver over the engine, you could fit a longer cargo bed on a shorter frame. Farmers loved them. Delivery companies loved them. Anyone who needed to haul a lot of stuff through tight spaces loved them. Under that vertical cab sat Chevrolet's 216 cubic inch inline 6, the engine they called the Blue Flame 6. It was an update to the old stove-bolt motor that had been powering Chevy trucks since the early 1930s. 80 horsepower, maybe 90 in the later models. Not fast, not powerful, but reliable. The kind of engine that started every morning and didn't complain. The cab itself was stripped to nothing. No radio, no turn signals. A heater was optional, which sounds absurd until you realize the engine was literally right below your feet, cooking the floorboards. You didn't need a heater, you needed fire-resistant boots. The dashboard had a certain Depression-era elegance to it, a strange grace note on what was essentially a workhorse. Chevrolet's designers in the late 30s were obsessed with streamlining. They tried to make everything look modern, even a cab-over truck that had no business looking elegant. The result was this weird combination of industrial utility and Art Deco styling that made the COE unlike anything else on the road. We dig into stories like this every week. The machines, the people behind them, NIA, the history nobody talks about. If you're not subscribed yet, this would be a good time. All right. Production of civilian trucks stopped in 1942 when the government ordered all manufacturing shifted to the war effort. So the 41 model year was the last gasp before everything went military. When civilian production came back in 46, the trucks were essentially identical to the 42 models. Chevrolet didn't bother redesigning them until 1949. That means the 41 COE existed in this narrow window, built for maybe one full year before the world changed. Now, why does any of this matter? Because in the year 2000, a film crew in Central Florida was looking for a truck. Not just any truck. They needed something that looked like it had crawled out of a nightmare. Something that was already terrifying before they modified it. Something with a face. And if you have ever seen a 1941 Chevy COE head-on, you know it has a face. That flat vertical front with the round headlights sitting wide apart, the chrome grille splitting the middle. It looks like it is staring at you, not in a friendly way. The movie was Jeepers Creepers, written and directed by Victor Salva, produced through Francis Ford Coppola's American Zoetrope Company. The premise was deceptively simple. 2 college-age siblings, Trish and Derry Jenner, are driving home through rural Florida for spring break. They're playing a license plate game to pass the time. Then, a massive, rusted delivery truck appears behind them and tries to run them off the road. After it passes, they see the same truck parked next to an abandoned church. The driver is dumping what looks like bodies wrapped in bloody sheets into a pipe sticking out of the ground. The driver spots them. The chase begins again. And what they are being chased by turns out to be something far worse than a truck driver. Salva had written the screenplay in about a month. He cited 2 major influences. The first was George Romero's Night of the Living Dead from 1968. The second was Steven Spielberg's Duel from 1971. That second one matters a lot here. Duel is essentially the same movie, minus the supernatural element. A traveling salesman in a Plymouth Valiant gets terrorized on a California highway by a rusty Peterbilt tanker truck whose driver is never shown. Spielberg turned the truck itself into the villain. The grill became a face. The exhaust became breath. The license plates from multiple states became trophies from previous kills. It was Spielberg's first real movie, and it worked because the truck felt alive. Salva took that exact idea and pushed it further. What if the truck wasn't just menacing? What if the driver really was a monster? To build the Creepers truck, the production team acquired three 1941 Chevrolet COEs, 3 trucks for one movie. The first one arrived at the studio as a 1.5-ton flatbed with a 158-inch wheelbase. Brackets on the frame indicated it had spent its working life hauling hay somewhere in rural America. The effects crew stripped the flatbed off and shortened the wheelbase by about 25 inches to match another truck they had. Then production designer Stephen Legler designed the enclosed box that would sit on the back. The concept sketches were refined from artist Brad Parker's original drawings. The box was built from 2-inch square tubing and sheet metal, constructed to look like something cobbled together from scrap. Then came the distressing. The effects team had to make a custom fabricated box look like it had been rotting alongside a 60-year-old cab. Fake rust bubbles, fake oxidation, fake decay layered onto real decay. When they were done, you could not tell where the original truck ended and the movie magic began. This first truck never actually ran during filming. It still had its original 6-cylinder engine and 4-speed manual transmission, but it was used as a static display only. The second truck was the Runner. It kept its original 216 engine and 4-speed gearbox and was used for driving shots. Problem was, the exhaust system was destroyed. Between every take, the driver had to open the doors and let the built-up smoke clear out of the cab before anyone could breathe. The third truck got a modern Chevy V8 transplant paired with an automatic transmission. This was the stunt truck. When you see the Creeper's truck doing anything aggressive on screen, chasing the Jenners' 1960 Chevy Impala down those Florida back roads, that is truck number 3 doing the work. The front bumper was key. That massive cow catcher bolted to the grill transformed the truck from unsettling to predatory. Cow catchers were originally designed for locomotives. Their job was to shove cattle and debris off the tracks before they could derail a train. On the front of a 1941 Chevy COE, the cow catcher served the same purpose in the story. The Creeper uses it to ram victims off the road. In reality, it was fabricated from rusty tubular and plate steel, all of it distressed to match the rest of the truck. The whole vehicle was painted in what was probably a factory Chevrolet color, either Morat green or Brewster green. But you would never know. The patina covered everything. And then there was the license plate, BEATNGU. In the movie, the siblings are playing a game where they try to guess the meaning of vanity plates. Derry reads this one as beating you. He's wrong. It means be eating you. Because the Creeper eats people, he harvests body parts to replace his own. The license plate is basically a warning label, and nobody reads it correctly until it is far too late. It is one of the great horror movie details. A demon who drives a truck with a vanity plate announcing his intentions. And somehow, nobody at the DMV flagged it. Now, here is where the story gets genuinely dark. Victor Salva never officially confirmed the specific inspiration for the opening sequence of Jeepers Creepers. He has only said it was based on a true story that I was told about an elderly couple. But the parallels to one particular case are so exact that coincidence is essentially impossible. On Easter Sunday, 1990, in Coldwater, Michigan, a couple named Ray and Marie Thornton were driving along a quiet rural road called Snow Prairie Road. They were brother and sister, not married. And they were playing a game to pass the time, a license plate game, guessing words and phrases from the plates of passing vehicles. A green 1984 Chevrolet van blew past them at high speed. Marie caught part of the plate. It started with the letters GZ. They thought nothing of it. A few miles later, they saw the same van parked near an abandoned schoolhouse. A man was outside the van, doing something with what appeared to be a bloody sheet. He was stuffing it into a hole near the building. The man looked up and saw them. The Thorntons kept driving, but the van appeared behind them moments later. For the next 2 miles, it rode their bumper, tailgating at terrifying speed down that empty Michigan road. The Thorntons turned off the highway. The van suddenly pulled to the side of the road and stopped. Ray Thornton, wanting to get the full plate number for the police, turned the car around and drove back toward the van. As they approached, they saw the driver crouch down, changing the rear license plate. The front passenger door was open. The inside of the van was soaked in blood. They drove straight to the police. The man they had seen was Dennis Depew. He was 46 years old, a property assessor for the town of Coldwater. Earlier that day, he had gone to the home of his ex-wife, Marilyn, to pick up their 3 children for a court-ordered visit. Marilyn Depew was 43. She worked as a guidance counselor at Coldwater High School. She had filed for divorce in 1989 after 18 years of marriage. Dennis was controlling, paranoid, and increasingly erratic. He accused her of turning their children against him. The divorce was finalized in December of '89. But Dennis never accepted it. When he arrived that Easter morning, the children did not want to go with him. An argument broke out. Dennis assaulted Marilyn in front of their kids. He shoved her down a flight of stairs and continued the attack. Then he told the children he was taking their mother to the hospital. He carried her to his van and drove away. That was the last time those kids saw their mother alive. Marilyn's body was found the next day on a deserted road between her house and the abandoned schoolhouse where the Thorntons had seen Dennis with the bloody sheet. She had been shot once in the back of the head. Tire tracks at the schoolhouse matched Dennis's van. The Thorntons' testimony was the primary eyewitness evidence. Dennis Depew vanished. For nearly a year, he was a fugitive. He sent 17 letters to friends and family from different states, rambling tirades blaming Marilyn for the collapse of his life, quoting Bible verses, insisting he was too old to start over. Each letter was postmarked from a different state to throw off investigators. On March 20th, 1991, the television show Unsolved Mysteries aired a segment on the Depew case. That night, in Dallas, Texas, a woman arrived home to find her boyfriend, Hank Queen, acting strangely. He was agitated. He told her his mother was sick and he needed to leave immediately. He asked her to go to the kitchen and make him sandwiches for the road. He was keeping her away from the television because Hank Queen was Dennis Depew and his face was on the screen. He packed his van and left. And the woman's friend saw the broadcast and called the hotline with his Texas license plate number. 4 hours later, Louisiana state troopers spotted the van. Depew refused to stop. A 15-mile high-speed chase followed. He smashed through 2 police roadblocks. Warren County, Mississippi, deputies shot out both rear tires. Depew drove on the rims for another half-mile before the van stopped. He fired 3 shots at officers. Then he put his .357 revolver in his mouth and pulled the trigger. That is the story behind the opening of Jeepers Creepers. A brother and sister on a road trip, playing a license plate game, a van speeding past. The same van spotted at an abandoned building. A man dumping something wrapped in bloody sheets. A terrifying chase. On every beat of the movie's first act maps directly onto what happened to Ray and Marie Thornton on Easter Sunday 1990. Except in the movie, the monster is supernatural. In real life, the monster was just a man. Now, if the story behind the truck were the only dark element here, that would be enough. But Jeepers Creepers carries another layer of darkness that has nothing to do with the plot. Victor Salva was convicted in 1988 of sexually abusing Nathan Forrest Winters, a 12-year-old actor who starred in Salva's first feature film, Clown House. Salva had videotaped one of the encounters. Commercial videotapes and magazines containing child exploitation material were found in his home. He pleaded guilty to lewd and lascivious conduct, to the abuse of a child under 14, and to procuring a child for the production of exploitative material. He was sentenced to 3 years in state prison. He served 15 months. After his release, Salva continued making films. Francis Ford Coppola, who had been impressed by Salva's short film Something in the Basement, which also starred Winters, continued to support his career. Disney hired Salva to direct Powder in 1995. When the film was released, Winters came forward publicly and organized a boycott. He and supporters held signs outside screenings that read, "Support the victim, not the victimizer." The protests drew national attention. Despite this, Powder performed well enough at the box office to keep Salva working. Then came Jeepers Creepers, Coppola executive produced. The film was shot on a $10 million budget over roughly 24 days at various locations in Central Florida. The driving scenes were filmed on a stretch of road called Tiger Trail in Dunalon. The abandoned church was in Ocala. Salva convinced homeowners along Tiger Trail to temporarily remove their mailboxes so the road would look more desolate on camera. The climax was filmed at a defunct meat packing plant north of Ocala. The film opened on August 31st, 2001. It made over $13 million in its opening weekend on nearly 3,000 screens. Against its $10 million budget, Jeepers Creepers grossed nearly $60 million worldwide. It set a record for the largest Labor Day weekend opening at the time. Critics were mixed, but audiences responded. The truck, the chase, or the slow reveal of the creeper as a supernatural creature rather than a human killer. It worked. And at the center of it all, the truck. 3 rusted COEs from 1941 that had spent their previous lives hauling hay and making deliveries. Stripped down, modified, distressed, given a cowcatcher and a license plate that spelled out a threat. The truck became so iconic that replica Beat NGU plates are still sold by multiple companies. Fans have built tribute trucks from surviving COEs. One of the original screen-used trucks sold on eBay in 2008 for $4,559. A collector in California bought it and has been restoring it ever since. So now let us talk about what makes the truck work, from an engineering perspective, as a piece of cinematic design. The COE configuration is inherently unsettling because it breaks the visual grammar of what a truck is supposed to look like. Your brain expects a vehicle to have a hood out front, an engine ahead of the driver, a horizontal orientation. The COE eliminates all of that. The cab sits right at the leading edge. The driver's face is the first thing you see. Or in the case of the creeper, the thing looking back at you is right there, immediately behind the glass, with nothing between you and it. The proportions are wrong in a way that triggers something primal. The truck is too tall for how short it is. The cab is too high for the body. The whole thing looks top-heavy, like it should tip over, but it does not. It just keeps coming. And because the wheelbase is so short, only about 109 inches on the smallest version, the truck can turn tighter than you would expect for something that size. It moves like something smaller and more agile than it has any right to be. The original engine, that 216 cubic inch inline six, made about 80 horsepower. For context, the 1960 Impala that the Jenner siblings are driving in the film would have had somewhere between 135 and 348 horses, depending on the engine option. There is no scenario in which a stock 1941 COE catches a 1960 Impala in a straight line. That is the point. In the movie, the truck moves with supernatural speed. It is faster than physics allows. The film acknowledges this without explaining it. The truck is not a truck. It is an extension of the creeper itself. Its speed is the creeper's speed. Its indestructibility is the creeper's indestructibility. By the third film in the franchise, released in 2017, the truck's mythology had expanded significantly. The back of the truck is revealed to be loaded with dead bodies. The vehicle is rigged with booby traps. Spikes extend from the truck bed if anyone climbs in. The tailpipe can fire a harpoon. The passenger door handle is rigged to trigger a spear that launches from inside the cab. The truck can apparently drive itself with the creeper standing on top of it. It is completely bulletproof. It has gone from being a vehicle to being a weapon, to being essentially alive. But all of that mythology sits on top of a real truck that a real farmer used to haul hay in rural America 80-some years ago. That is the genius of the casting. You take something that already exists, something that already has a presence, something that already looks like nothing else on the road, and you just lean into what it already is. The 1941 Chevy COE did not need much help looking menacing. It was built that way by accident. The influence of Spielberg's Duel on this choice cannot be overstated. In Duel, the truck is a 1955 Peterbilt 281 tanker. Rusty, belching exhaust, covered in license plates from multiple states, suggesting victims across the country. The driver is never shown. The truck is the character. Spielberg shot it from below, making it tower over the hero's Plymouth. He filmed the grill head-on so it looked like a snarling face. He let the truck breathe through its exhaust. The entire movie is about a machine that seems to have intent. Salva took the same playbook and applied it to the COE. The flat face of the cab-over design actually works better for this trick than the Peterbilt did. A conventional truck has a long hood that creates distance between the viewer and the cab. The COE has no hood. The cab is the front. The face is right there. When the creeper's truck fills your rearview mirror, the cab is the first and only thing you see. Flat, vertical, staring. And then there is the sound. The movie's most effective moments with the truck involve its horn. Not the engine, not the tires. The horn. That massive, low industrial blast that echoes across the empty Florida countryside. It is not the horn of a vehicle. It is a warning call, an announcement. The creeper is not sneaking up on anyone. He wants you to know he is there. He wants you to hear him coming. The horn on a 41 COE would have been a simple electric unit, nothing particularly powerful. The production clearly enhanced it for the film. What you hear in the movie is closer to a ship's horn than anything a pickup truck would produce, but that is the point. Everything about the truck is bigger, louder, and more wrong than it should be. The film takes its name from a 1938 jazz standard written by Harry Warren and Johnny Mercer for the Warner Brothers movie Going Places. Louis Armstrong premiered the song. It was nominated for Best Original Song at the Academy Awards. The lyrics are about being dazzled by someone's eyes. Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those peepers? In the film, psychic Giselle Gay Hartman calls the Jenners at a diner and plays the song over the phone. She warns them that when they hear this song, they need to run. The creeper collects eyes. The song about beautiful eyes becomes a death sentence. At the end of the film, the creeper is seen looking through the holes where Derry Jenner's eyes used to be, while the song plays on the soundtrack. The phrase Jeepers Creepers itself is older than the song. It emerged in the 1920s or 30s as a polite way of saying Jesus Christ, without actually saying it. A minced oath, linguists call it. Johnny Mercer got the idea for the lyric after hearing Henry Fonda exclaim the phrase in the 1935 film, "The Farmer Takes a Wife." Mercer heard it and thought it sounded like the start of a song. So a euphemism for taking the Lord's name in vain turned into a love song about beautiful eyes, turned into the theme music for a demon who harvests those eyes from his victims. That is a journey. The consequences of Jeepers Creepers rippled outward in multiple directions. The film grossed nearly 6 times its budget. It spawned 3 sequels, though each subsequent film was received progressively worse than the last. Jeepers Creepers 2 came in 2003, also directed by Salva, and was commercially successful, though critically middling. Jeepers Creepers 3 arrived in 2017 and drew immediate controversy, not just because of Salva's criminal history, though that was a significant factor. The Union of British Columbia Performers had warned talent agents about Salva's conviction when the film tried to cast in Vancouver. The casting service removed the notice entirely. A petition calling for a boycott circulated, and then critics who received screener copies found something in the film that made the controversy worse. A scene involving 2 characters discussing the abuse of a 13-year-old girl included a line where one character expresses sympathy for the abuser. The line was cut from the theatrical release but remained in copies sent to reviewers. Nathan Forrest Winters, Salva's victim, never starred in another film after Clown House. In 2017, as Jeepers Creepers 3 generated renewed attention to Salva's crimes, Winters clarified his position publicly. He said his purpose was not to stop Salva from working. It was to make sure the truth stayed visible. He was crowdfunding a speaking tour about child abuse awareness and a documentary about his experience. A 4th Jeepers Creepers film, subtitled Reborn, was released in 2022. It had no involvement from Salva. Different writer, different director, different production company entirely. It was not well received. The franchise, such as it is, appears to have run its course, but the truck endures. The 1941 Chevy COE is one of those vehicles that exists at the intersection of history and mythology. It was built for an America that was about to go to war. It hauled hay and freight and supplies during the last year of peacetime manufacturing. It was utilitarian, basic, designed to work, and nothing else. Chevrolet's designers tried to give it style, tried to make streamlining work on something that was fundamentally a box on wheels, and the result was something that looked unlike anything before or since. 60 years later, a film crew bolted a cowcatcher to one and painted a threat on the license plate, and the truck became the face of a franchise. Not the monster, the truck. Ask anyone what they remember about Jeepers Creepers, and the first answer is almost always the truck. The rusted green cab looming in the rearview mirror, the horn echoing down an empty road, the beat NGU plate that nobody reads correctly until too late. The real horror of Jeepers Creepers was never on screen. It was in the true crime that inspired the opening. A woman murdered by her ex-husband, a body dumped behind a schoolhouse, 2 siblings who happened to drive past at the wrong moment, and it was behind the camera. A convicted predator who served 15 months and was handed a career by Hollywood's willingness to look the other way. The truck did not know any of this. It was just a truck, a 1941 Chevrolet cab-over engine that hauled hay for decades before someone decided it looked like a nightmare. It did. It always had. Chevrolet just never meant it that way. And there you have it, a hay truck that became the most recognized vehicle in horror cinema, a true crime case that became a movie's opening act, and a franchise that can never quite escape what is behind it. If you have thoughts on this one, or you know something I missed, put it in the comments. And if you made it this far, you might as well subscribe.